Hello everyone, welcome to chapter 68 on my RLDR Custom Creations YouTube channel. It is the weekend edition again, and in the shop today, it's Christmas time. So if you want to know what I mean by that, all you got to do is stay tuned. Christmas, he says. In September? I don't think so. You'll soon see what I meant by that. But before we get into that, yeah, it is September. It's second video in September for me. In September, I'm always thinking about what I would be doing with students in the shop. And September was a month where we always did most of the safety stuff and all those good things that need to be covered. But I was always thinking about things that we could do. And what I was hoping to, the impact I was hoping to have on my students' lives when I was working with them is, first of all, to instill a love of all things shop. Wood turning was one of the things that I really was in love with, and I've seen many people that are my age, and they didn't work in the school system. They had other jobs, and now they're back in one of the Hub City Turner Club's adult turning classes, and they're telling me about, they remember their grade 8 wood turning experience. That was my goal for my students, so that they would maybe return to it, or if they could afford it, stay with it through their life. And that's important to me. But as I worked with our school division, and often the other shop teachers would tap me on the shoulder to do turning classes for them. Because for some, not all of our shop teachers were actually trained shop teachers. Often it was the phys ed teacher. And in a small school, they didn't have the luxury of having somebody with experience. So they took from within the staff, and often it fell to the phys ed teacher. So I thought what I would do today is do a little project. This I would have done with, in fact, I did do this with my grade 8 students. And we're going to add one little twist to it today. I should show you what it is rather than just talk about it. We're going to turn a little Christmas tree. Ah, there's the Christmas reference. Yeah, we're going to turn this little Christmas tree, but when it's all said and done, we're going to dip it. We're going to marble it as well. And a little project like this will really excite your kids. They will be so pleased with it if they can get this to turn out, and then they can go through the magic of marbling. They'll be thrilled. And maybe what you'll do with a little project like this is turn on that switch and get one of your students or 10 of your students or whatever it is to look at maybe woodworking or wood turning as one of their lifetime goals. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera around and get you right overhead today, and we're going to make a Christmas tree. All right, and we're going to try shooting overhead today. I think I just need to maybe tweak the camera just a wee bit. There we go. That's a little better. Hopefully my setup isn't too unstable. Jay, thanks a lot for the comment. And I don't know, I just hadn't thought of doing it. So thanks. Appreciate that input, Jay. So anyway, we're going to get started here. You'll notice this block is about 4.5 by 2.5, but any piece of scrap stock will do. This is birch. I like turning birch because it's native to our area, and I have ways that I can get it. So I like turning birch. I put center on this already, but I would encourage you to get your students to do this, because you're basically learning some math here about finding center of things. So remember, those skills turning can help you teach other skills as well. So I did both ends, and I put a little mark to locate my center a little faster as I do this. So I'm going to use my safe center. Okay, this is a cheap version. I don't know if Busy Bee sells these anymore, but they used to. And it's just basically a cup center. And what will happen is if the kids have a bad catch, it will slip instead of having them have a big catch and damage their project. So that's what I'm going to use today. And normally, and I've done it already here, well, no, actually I haven't. This is going to do. Normally I would get them to take a mallet and drive this in so there is a ring around the center. So it just helps it grip a bit more. For demo purposes today, I'm just going to do this with my tailstock. Okay, so I'm going to slide back a little bit. Oops. Don't want to have my knockout bar in there. That would be bad. Okay, so now we're going to slide this up. And I find that little hole with I use an awl to make that little mark in the end. I find that really helps locating center. Tighten it up really good. Lock it. I would encourage you to let your students put it in the lathe. Get it ready to put in the lathe. Put it in the lathe. But before they touch the button, before they turn the lathe on, you need to inspect it. Because the last thing you want is something flying around your shop. And if kids tell a story about a shop accident, I guarantee you by about the third or fourth retelling, it's almost on the same level as having a nuclear blast in your shop. It'll be terrible. And sometimes administrators believe that. So yeah, check it before you let them start turning. Okay, so I'm going to move my tool rest closer. I like to have the tool rest personally just below the center, which I think is good. And the kids, that's the way I taught it to them as well. The height usually didn't change much because all the groups did things, they didn't adjust the height a whole lot, so it stayed good throughout. Anyway, so I locked the rest, I locked the banjo, the tool rest lock, and now I'm just going to spin it by hand to make sure it's good, and then I'm going to start it. Okay, that's a little faster than I would have turned with kids. I'm at almost 2,000 RPM. On our little lathes, our little deltas and jets, I turned, I think, on the third pulley, which was about 1,200 RPM. And again, speed is kind of up to you, but don't use so much speed that you intimidate your kids. Okay? So I'm going to start roughing this out. I am actually going to use a roughing gouge, but you could, in fact, I'm going to use a couple of different tools just to show you that this isn't that tool specific. So put your tool on the rest, approach the wood, and away we go. Roughing gouge is a very versatile tool. I should have invested in these in our school shop. What I would have done in the school shop is I would have used spindle gouge, and it works. It's just a little slower. And the kids probably would have just had it like this and scraped. Realistically, these cuts don't matter. So, and for students approaching this wood, this would have been maybe the second project, and rubbing the bevel may not be something that they have mastered yet. So just letting them get it round. Like that is a good thing. If Now, you could use a skew to do this too, but I'm not going to do that today because I wouldn't recommend your grade 8s running the skew right at the very beginning. That's too advanced. However, and I can't believe I'm doing this, I'm going to show you some carbide tools. Now, at first I had no use for carbides at all. But as I thought of this, and the more I thought of it, if I had it all to do over again, I would probably introduce wood turning in grade 7, and they would use carbides in grade 7 because you could teach so many things. You can teach so many things about turning with these carbide tools. Even if you would use these as introductory and get them into, okay, I'm going to say this, sorry, carbide people, but real turning tools, I think there's a place for them. And they're maybe at the very beginning of your turning and maybe at the very end. I see a use for these. So anyway, I'm going to put this away because that's not my style. And the next thing I'm going to do, I've got this round. It's not super smooth, but that doesn't matter. The only cuts that really matter are the last ones. So the next thing I would do if I was teaching students is we would define the turning area. So, oops, another thing I would have done with them is when they can get a finger between the tool rest and the wood, without the lathe running, of course, it's time to advance the rest. And there we go. I like this little tool rest I built. It works out really well. Okay, so I'm going to define the end. There we go. That's one end. Now I could measure this, but I'm not that precise. Okay. One thing you really need to watch out for when you work with kids, and hopefully, like when I was teaching, what would happen is I'd have 4 turners, possibly what? Oh, I don't know, 8 or 9 woodworkers were running the bandsaw, belt disc sander, various pieces of equipment, building small furniture projects, and maybe some people running the scroll saw. Often we had as many we had as many as 33 in the shop. We won't talk about that. I was always kind of equipped for about 20. That was kind of where we were at. Often we had less than that, which was wonderful. So you have to kind of circulate and try to catch before they keep trying to make it smooth and end up with a little stick. And that is a big problem. But we're going to get back into this here. I'm going to show you more than tell you today. So here's our tree right here. This is waste and this is waste. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rough out the stem first. So I don't know, I could make marks here if I had a pencil. That would be wonderful. There we go. I had one. Okay, so let's say we've got a stem about that. And I'm going to actually cut that before I mark out where the pieces of the tree are going to go. And I'm just using the parting tool here. Yes. Just going to go a little further in so I know what's waste and what's stem. Okay, so now I'm going to divide this. Okay, where's my piece here? I'm going to divide this into 1, 2, 3, 4 different levels. So this I am going to mark, and I would encourage you to mark this with kids. The only problem is I'm marking it way too early. What I should have done, and I'm going to start doing it now, I got ahead of myself. And sometimes that is a problem when you're teaching. You're in such a rush to get done. What I would do first, this would work, but I found what worked better for me was to have the kids turn the taper first. So let's turn the taper and forget about those marks. Those marks, there, they're gone. Okay, I'm going to use spindle roughing gouge again because I like it. Now your kids will not turn this fast. I'm going to redefine that. And I'm going to go with, I like the spindle gouge. My advice to you about tools is always buy the best tools you can afford. Okay? All right. Now I've got my overall taper. I should maybe be a bit smaller at that end. In fact, I'm going to do that quickly. It'll help me out later. I like to have it visually being quite straight, that taper, but it really doesn't matter. There's a little bit of a bump there, which is annoying me, but I'm not going to do anything about it. Okay, so now let's mark it. This one I just eyeballed, but I think actually I'm going to change it a little bit. The bottom's pretty big on these. And that's another thing. Let your students design. Let them do this. And the nice thing about this project is it uses so little. Look at that. I put my marks exactly where I had them. Okay. Yeah, that's too funny. Okay, so I'm just going to, and this is another thing that absolutely mesmerizes kids. You do that when you're not there, that's what they're doing. They're making lines. They love it. Okay. Yeah, I miss working with them. Okay, but hopefully I'll get a chance to again this winter. So, okay, so now what I would do is, and again, there are probably 50 different ways to turn this. There is not necessarily a right way or wrong way, and you may show your students this way, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to happen. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to part a little bit. That's a little deep. And I want to keep my parts on the same parallel to the surface. Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Okay. Then, once you get to this stage, you're just about home. I like to use my spindle gouge. Like I say, I'm a huge lover of the spindle gouge. And having a good sharp one, and I did sharpen these just before I started turning this. The first one I turned today, I kind of angled the bottom. And I didn't like it. I'm not going to do that for this one. But finishing these ends, getting kids to realize that. Now, I need to pull tool rest out a little bit for this. Oh, and maybe more like this. This cut, this push cut, is really difficult to do. Okay, I wouldn't recommend having your kids do that. First of all, you're going to need to be there. You're going to need to show them that. Probably the better way to do it when you're just starting out is to shear scrape it. Get them to put the gouge in kind of like that. Start. And it's not going to be perfect. That push cut is far superior. But it's a lot harder to start that push cut without any support. It's like, yeah, I can do it. In fact, every once in a while I get a little catch, and I make sure I've really backed up. My thumb is pushed hard into the tool rest, and I'm going to go straight in until I get a little bit of a foothold, and then I'm going to rotate my wrist slightly. But that is a hard cut to start, so I would not do that with grade 8s. Okay, that's one. And remember, I'm not going to do any sanding on this today for time, but they can sand too. There's nothing wrong with having your grade 8s get a piece of sandpaper and do some finishing. Oops. That's what happens when you're talking and not paying attention to your turning. And that's going to happen to kids too. Okay, so I really should have a detail gouge here. That would be better. The other nice thing about this, having that come to an abrupt stop there, is it forces kids to rotate that tool as they're cutting, because they're going to want to scrape everything yet. So you might have to, do some guidance there. Okay, we're going to get on to this one here. Yeah, a detail gouge would really help. Something with a longer grind would really be of benefit here. But, again, if you have a lot of kids in your class, you cannot provide as much individualized instruction as you'd like to. Okay, and another thing, and I'm guilty of this all the time, I turn too thin and then go back and try to finish something. So I'm not going to do that today. I am going to get this other end ready to come off. I think I could live with that. Now, this is ready to come off the lathe. It should be sanded first, but I'm not going to bother today. We're not going to do any sanding, so I don't want this video to be an hour long. So anyway, I'm going to quickly part this off, and that's something that you may have to help students with at first. In fact, I would recommend it. Get them to get it to this point if they're disciplined enough to do that. In the beginning, they won't be. They'll leave things much heavier. Now, if I was really a purist, I'd get rid of this and I would shear or push cut that bottom so I had really nice, a nice finish on it. But I am not there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move my tool rest again. Man, I like this little rest that I made. I love it. And I'm just going to go in. Another thing to get them to listen for, as you get thin at both ends, the pitch changes, the sound changes on when it's rotating. And it's a sure way to tell that you're getting to the end. Again, a detail gouge would be awesome in here, but I didn't have one with my kids, so you don't have one here either. Okay, and that is it. What I would do then, thank goodness I'm somewhat organized in here, because otherwise I'd have run around the shop looking for a little pull saw. Then I would take it out, and I would be praising this like you wouldn't believe, because kids need that reinforcement. You have to think of this from their perspective. They just spent an hour at the lathe, probably white knuckling this equipment because they're not familiar with it. They've done this. They've never turned anything in their life. And here they have this little Christmas tree. And I think that's a wonderful thing. If you can instill in your kids the ability to feel good about their work. I have no idea which way this is going to be in the video. So I'm going to give you the upside down and the right side up view just in case. Okay, so the next thing you're going to see is I'm going to be at the marbling tank and we're going to dip this. All right, we're ready to dip. I'm using materials that I've had mixed up for about a week now. I'm not sure how good this is going to be, but we're not going to waste a whole lot of time here. I had to blow dry to get the alum, there we go, to get the alum bath to set. So here we go. Oh, I'm going to move us just a little bit here. So I tip the container so I have enough to dip here. I'm a little scared this isn't going to turn out, but it's a little too black, and there we missed a few places. I'm not sure why that happened, but I'm actually just going to lay that in again. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but okay. You know, that's the other part of this. Every time it's a mystery. So I'm going to go rinse this off, and we're going to close out this video. And there it is. So a wonderful little project. I don't know if you can see it very well. Wonderful little project that you can do with your grade 8 level wood turners. Or if they've never done it before, this would be fun all the way up to grade 12, maybe with a little bit more advanced turning. But I didn't get the marbling quite the way I wanted it. I hope you can see it. It's kind of shiny because it's just wet from the water yet. I'd hoped to have it predominantly green with black and white lines, but I didn't really have any white mixed, and the white I mixed wasn't working quite right, so I didn't use much of it. But I'm learning every day too, so I will probably next week do a full-scale demo for marbling, mixing everything and getting everything right from the very beginning, marbling the way I understand it, which is pretty traditional. I'm just not maybe a pro. But I am going to be doing a demo of this concept at the first Saskatchewan Woodworkers Guild meeting of the month, or of the year. So that's, I think, the third Thursday in September. So I'm going to probably do a little bit less because I won't have time to do the full-blown mix everything, here you go, here you go. I'm just going to talk about it and dip something because that's probably about all the time I'll have. So with that in mind, like I said, teachers out there, if you're teaching wood turning to the next generation, this is a neat little project you can do that doesn't cost a lot to do. And the marbling is what instills that sense of magic in your students. They're going to think, man, that's cool. And this will go home and this will be on the mantle. It'll be a prized possession. So anyway, with that in mind, please like, share, and subscribe. We do have the 200 subscriber giveaway, hopefully coming up soon. The piece is already made for that giveaway, that tall cylindrical candle holder. And it's marbled and it's finished. And let's put it this way, if I never get to 200 subscribers, I'm sure my wife will like it. So with that in mind, please like, share, and subscribe, and have an awesome of what's left of the weekend. Okay, we'll see you towards the end of next week. Be safe.